That's
Okay,
right.
so let's start at the top. Rusty, great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out. I appreciate it.
Hey Joe, I'm just trying to be a famous interview. So if I can be famous by the time this is done, we're in good shape. So
You're already heading in the right direction. This is very rare for us to be kind of in the same neighborhood. You're in Olathe, and I'm in the Kansas City Metro, so it's great to catch up with a local.
absolutely, yeah. I think we talked earlier about we should have done this in person, but
Yeah,
great to visit with
absolutely. So let's start off here with something that I know we're all getting tired of, which
you.
is COVID, but it was a big event for all of us in our lives. How did you get through that time period, and how did it change the way that you do business now?
Yeah, we were, my wife and I were actually vacationing in Central Florida, and we kept hearing these cruise ships were coming in with some kind of illness, and we're like, oh, okay. And so we actually started driving back to Kansas City, and as we were making our way back, restaurants were beginning to close, and toilet paper was out, and all these inconveniences. And by the time we got back to Kansas City, of course, it would have been pretty full blown, and things were starting to shut down, unfortunately. And we had so we're in the accounting world. We do a lot of CFO, fractional CFO work,
Yeah.
and a lot of our clients were really virtual already. It was our team that was all in person. And so we sent everyone home at that time with laptops and said, "Hey, this will be short-lived." And as of this recording, I think what are we 4.5 years into it, and we've never invited anybody back to the office. We
Wow.
just said it's working well, and so of course that wasn't just hey, it's working well, but it's definitely some things we were able to begin implementing. Some of it was just putting a buddy system in place. If you remember, man, the isolation was just painful. We couldn't hardly walk outside. We couldn't do all these different things. And so we just had some health check-ins. Hey, how you doing today, Joe? And it's amazing, even these years later, some of those relationships are still happening. Just hey, how's the family doing this week? And so for us, it was really that adapt from a work environment, and it wasn't a huge lift, but we had already had a lot of things done electronically by that time, so it wasn't chaotic, I guess, at that point.
So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do
Yeah,
as a business leader. I'm going to
yeah,
put you in front of a bunch of grade school kids, third graders. One of the kids is
yeah,
curious and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer
yeah.
them?
Yeah. Yeah. So I get to work with some amazing people. We get to work with business owners and help them get clarity around their numbers, kind of their accounting numbers. They know how much money they have and make sure those are clear. And then we help them grow their companies, grow their profits. And you know what? It helps them sleep well at night. So we get to help we get to come along beside business owners to get clarity, grow profits, and gain peace of mind.
So fractional CFOs, this is
Yeah.
becoming more and more of a common
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah.
When did this whole industry kind of accelerate and
Yeah.
have people needed it for a long time but didn't know it, and now that it's there, it makes sense?
Yeah, so I started almost 25 years ago, and with this model, and it was so funny. I worked with some students in an MBA program here in Kansas City to do a project, and I said, "Your project is to get for me this semester." And Joe, by the end of that semester, not only did they not nobody wants to outsource their accounting services. And I thought, oh my goodness, I just started this on this model and nobody wants it. So I think either I was early to the game or something happened. But yeah, it has been around for quite some time. I think more and more people are joining. You've got so many fractional opportunities. You got marketing and HR, and you can go on and on. And I think the financial piece, the financial operations are just part of that. So yes, it's been around a while. Some of us have went through the early stages and hopefully paved the ground for everybody else coming in these days.
For sure. So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
Third grade, I wanted to be in do architectural design. I
Okay.
wanted to build models of the buildings that were going to be built. I was kind of in that model cars and that kind of stuff. So I love the creative piece of that.
I actually worked at HNTB in my 20s and got
Okay.
kind of an inside view, and it's fascinating how
Yeah.
all of that comes together.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So
So yeah, my dad actually was an electrician, and so a little later in my life, I got to learn some of the electrical part of the building piece, and so learn quickly. I'm not skilled in running wire. I can definitely get shocked by electricity, but you know, r running it appropriately probably wasn't my skill set. So
It's funny you mentioned that because one of my best friends of all time lives in Olathe and he
okay.
became an electrician. And I always get him out to help me out because I've been shocked a few times. And he tells me that if that ever happens to them, they immediately have to go in and get an EKG because if it throws your heart off just a parsec, so it's interesting. It's
Yes, yes, that may be what. Yeah, the problem's been all along. So,
That's it. Same with me.
oh man,
So let me ask you this. What were the seeds planted in you? Take me back to
yeah,
where you were born and raised, and how
yeah,
did you get into being a leader and a CEO
yeah.
and getting into numbers? How did that happen?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mentioned my dad was an electrician, and so I think we were talking before recording Patrick Mahomes' country back this tech area, and anyway, watched him in the entrepreneur role in that. My mom was a house cleaner, so I learned how to clean houses early on, and so just learned that, watched that entrepreneurial spirit early on. And it was probably, my goodness, out of college, got my first job in Kansas City, worked there for a number of years, and then went to work for a CPA firm. And I'd just working way too many hours at the time. In fact, Joe, I ended up in the hospital
Wow.
because just the stress was just tearing up my body. And it was after that experience, I came out and a coworker said, "I can't believe you haven't started your own company." And it was just the affirmation from a friend that said, "Hey, you could do this. You'd be good at this."
Yeah.
And so April 1st, April Fool's Day of 2000, I turned the switch on and became an entrepreneur.
Wow. That's wonderful. So who's been a role model? Who's been a hero for
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, it's interesting watching different business owners over the years. I think of leaders like Craig Groeschel, who's a leader podcaster out of Oklahoma City. Just has some just great insight as far as leadership. I think of I'm trying to think of some of even the local people in Kansas City. That just you just come along beside them. The Hellsberg. I don't know if you're
Yeah.
familiar with Barnett
No.
Hellsberg. Just people like that come along beside. They invest back into the community. In mentoring others and those kind of things. So I think those are just a couple off the top that come to mind.
So speaking of leaders, if you could
Yeah,
meet and hang out with any leader in the world right now or
yeah,
anybody influential
yeah,
to see how they operate that may
yeah.
benefit you, who would that be?
Yeah, yeah, I'd go back even to that Craig Groeschel out of Oklahoma City, just watching, some of the things he does. It was interesting during COVID, during the deep dark days of COVID. He did a talk for leaders, and there was just some vulnerability in that talk, because sometimes as leaders, you're trying to hold it together when everything's falling apart. And
Yeah.
and I remember one of the talks he gave was, man, I just felt like just crying, and but I knew I needed to share my heart and my here, I'm not sure what's going to happen tomorrow, but here's where we're gonna keep heading this direction. And so I think it's just listening to leaders like that. Man, it'd be fun to just yeah, shadow them for a day and just kind of see, yeah, kind of how they do things and how they interact with people, that they
Yeah.
get to work beside.
So in the 24 years that you've been a CEO and you've made
Yeah,
this change in your life, what
yeah.
was one of the time periods during this timeline that may have been the most difficult, but you grew the most
Mm,
and ultimately was the most
yeah,
beneficial for you?
yeah, yeah. About year 10, Joe, I just come back from a mission trip to Honduras. And I don't know if you've done any local mission work or even, overseas kind of work like that, but man, it was just so euphoric. I mean, it was just, you come back, you're yeah, just amazing. My 16-year-old daughter at the time got to teach 8 ladies how to sew. And we were
Nice.
able to provide some sewing machines and just life changing for these ladies. They get to learn a skill. And so I came back from Kansas City and business had just had just been humming along, nothing crazy. And I just felt like I was being called to mission work.
Yeah.
And my wife said, you know what, I'd be all for that, and let's talk about what that looks like. And it was a group of guys that I was getting together with, just kind of a business group of guys. And one of them said, maybe your mission field is the business that God's already put in place for you, that you're working in today. And I thought, oh man, I've just wasted 10 years not being a good steward of that mission field. And so it was really that time period. If you were to look at a chart of our business, and we just kind of putted along, and it was about that year 10 where it really, I'd say, you can say took off, or at least began having vision. How about that? And so it was really fun to see, yeah, just clarity when you
Yeah.
have a purpose that you're really focused on.
Yeah.
It just made a world of difference.
But I would imagine going to a place like Honduras and seeing the sparkle in their eyes when they do learn something like sewing
Mhm.
or
Yeah,
experience something that, because when we're here
yeah,
in America, there's everything,
yeah,
there's so many things
yeah,
that are a part of our
yeah,
culture and our world that
yeah,
we just take for granted
yeah,
all for the most part. But when
yeah,
you get to a place like
yeah.
that, that has to broaden and open up the way that you think about living on this planet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of argument would be say would be you don't have to go across overseas, or across the world for that kind of thing. There's things here in town even that I think we can open our eyes to. But
Yeah.
it is fascinating, just getting to be exposed to different things like that. And we've been blessed to get to go down about a half a dozen times now and do some medical brigades and different things. And yeah, I think there's definitely in whatever we're doing, how can we be an equiper and not just a handout? Because that can, and so learning how to serve well, I think is, man, that's so important.
So especially as a CEO, what's the best
Yeah,
advice that you've ever gotten that's resonated with you?
yeah, yeah. I think best advice that I get to now share with younger folks is, boy, don't do it alone. It's so easy just to stick yourself in a cocoon, and I've got to make all the decisions. And I think of my friend who gave me that, just that clarifying question. Is the mission really where you're already in it, and you don't need to be running off somewhere? But man, some of those roundtable groups, those advisory groups, just don't, yeah, would be what I'd tell. I think we all need a coach in our
Yeah.
group. I think we need a cheerleader, somebody to cheer us on, and a community,
Yeah.
just a group to do stuff with. So,
The thing that always gets me about CEOs is that you always there's always a good attitude that goes into it and you make it look
mhm,
easy. It's like watching baseball players. They
mhm,
do these plays and it
yeah,
all looks they make it look so easy, but it's really
yeah,
difficult. Like Hudler, we get the chance to listen to
yeah,
Rex Hudler and he always talks about how difficult baseball is. And I
yeah,
think about
yeah,
that with CEOs in the business world. So my
yeah,
question to you is this: what has been the fuel for you for these 24 years to stay in
yeah,
the game, to evolve, to
yeah,
grow, and to help, and to also evolve as a human being yourself? What is
yeah,
that collective
yeah,
gas for you?
yeah. I think continuing to learn, that is such a missed opportunity for some business owners. They get to a point where it's like, well, I've kind of conquered it all, and I know it all, and it's like, man, do not do that. So I think that's one. I think going beyond yourself. We often talk about, look for ways to serve others. When it's all about you, man, the number of cars, the number of houses, the number of trips, the number of whatever is never going to satisfy if it's all about you. And so when we're looking out for others, how can we come along beside another young business owner now, or just somebody that maybe needs some guidance? And so that, I think that's a big thing. Um, Recently, I read a book called The Strength of Purpose by Elizabeth Dixon, and really good exercise in that book, and just kind of help clarify some of the things that it's almost like putting together a personal mission statement, for you. And there were five attributes that I took away, as far as, here's what I'm striving to be, and here's the things that I hear from people I get to work with, and things like encourage, guide, equip, serve, listen. And so if I can apply those five daily, man, that's part of that purpose statement.
Yeah. So, of all of these things that you've accomplished in
Yeah.
your life, what are you the proudest of?
Yeah, I was sitting across from an older gentleman who had accomplished just crazy, amazing things. In fact, he had sold his business to Warren Buffett, back in the day, and just doing some amazing things. And I asked him that same question. I thought, wow, you've done all these things. what's something, as a young business owner, what's the magic, what I need to know? And he kind of pondered and he goes, I think the thing I'm most proud of is being married to my wife for over 50 years now.
Wow.
And I thought, man, I'm just going to steal that a little bit. It's not 50 years, but for me, it's a little over 33 years. And so I think those are the things sometimes we miss. We're like, oh, what's your biggest accomplishment? You've created all this, but man, sometimes it's the why are you doing that? And
Yeah.
sometimes it's the family faith and some of those kind of things. So
So let's backtrack to a younger
yeah,
period in your life, say
yeah,
18 years old. You have a
yeah,
dream tonight. You run into that version of you, and you can give that version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've lived, the
yeah,
wisdom you've gained. What advice would you give your younger self?
yeah. Yeah, I think be patient would be one. Sometimes we start looking at others like, man, that Joe, he's got this, couple podcasts and doing great, and I wish I was more like him. And that's not necessarily my path. That's Joe's path. And so I think it's that be patient. Don't get wrapped up on what others are doing. The other one I think that I've learned is be still. Take time out to maybe celebrate, what you've accomplished. Maybe think through some of the lessons, learn from some of the lessons, and just take some time to dream a little bit about what the next season looks like. So
Yeah.
that be still time is also important.
So we've extolled the virtues of Kansas City a little bit before we actually
Yeah.
got on,
Yeah.
but I want to ask you, what's your favorite thing about living in the Kansas City metro?
Yeah, when I moved up here, Joe, from West Texas, and it got down to 23 below zero, and I thought I am not staying in Kansas City. So, and then I met a beautiful Kansas City girl, and we've been married now 33 years, and I think for me it's now where our family is. We've got kids, grandkids, and those kind of things now, so part of it, I think, is just family. It's family friendly. It's a great, just a great atmosphere,
Yeah.
great location. So I think we even have a few winning sports teams these
Yeah.
days. So
Yeah.
that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. So at the end of the day, everyone out there has a
Yeah,
perception of you, family, friends,
mm,
clients,
yeah,
everyone that you work with, but you run the
yeah.
show. What's your
Yeah.
perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Yeah, and I think that goes back to some of those attributes I talked about earlier, those purpose type statements. Man, I love to be an encourager and a connector, and just coming along the side as a guide. And part of that comes through listening. And about, man, 7 years ago, I started running. Never been a runner in my life, and got out on the running trails with an initiative with World Vision to help provide clean water for some areas. And the amount of conversations, the deep level of conversations, I guess, along those trails had just been life changing, not only for me, but hopefully those that we've gotten to come along beside. So a lot of those I see happening in those conversations,
Yeah.
and so just listening and coming along and serving somebody. So those would be the kind of those attributes that I would that I'm striving for. Hopefully, I'm hearing some of that, but love to continue to grow in those.
So if anyone wants to reach out,
Yeah,
learn more about what you're doing at Fulling Management, any of the
yeah,
good business, where do they go?
yeah, absolutely. You can go to fullingmgmt.com or rustyfulling.com as well. But yeah, love to connect.
I love it. Rusty, this has been wonderful. Thank you, sir. Keep doing the
Hey,
great work. It's so great to meet you.
yeah, thanks, Joe. Hey, we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Take care.